All right. Well, hopefully the people from Core will start streaming in here in a little bit. Let's get started anyway. There's a bunch of new PRs here, including one from Casey that I'm just entering in now. So let's see. Rack's got a huge number of new PRs related to buffer list and optimizing various aspects of it. I think there was some stuff here about, let's see, it was shrinking the size of various data structures, uh, dropping non-shareable buffer types, filling the buffer list last P member using iterators instead. That's nice. I don't remember what this carriage over standard moves one does. I guess it just improves the move constructor. So anyway, just, yeah, huge number of various things there, which is really good because we do see the buffer list implementation slowing things down sometimes. So what else? Igor has an excellent PR, or at least it looks excellent to me on the surface because I haven't looked at it real deeply yet, but it simplifies the onode pin and unpin logic in BlueStore. I had made an attempt to do this a couple of months ago, and there was an issue that we were hitting where we could end up iterating over every single onode in the cache looking when we were trying to do a trim. What happens is that if a bunch of onodes are pinned, you might iterate over them and try to look for unpinned things that you can remove. And you might actually, if you have a lot of pinned things, do quite a few iterations, maybe even all the way back to the beginning of the cache. And if you're trimming really often, you'll do that over and over and over again, which is really bad in some circumstances. It can be a big CPU drain, and also you can have just kind of nasty behavior overall. So my attempt to fix it worked, sort of, but it was really complicated. It ended up introducing some very, very subtle race conditions in the way that we use boost intrusive lists, and kind of having the reference counting get really funky when you're moving things in and out of cache or between different structures in the cache. So Igor's way of solving this is he basically just moves pinning completely out of the cache and into the onode itself. That looks much, much simpler, much, much better. So very exciting. That should both be an improvement over what we had before and an improvement over what I was doing. So that's really good. And then last new one here is allow zone group modify to configure index shards from Casey for RGW. That also includes just a really simple change to increase the number of bucket shards. Previously, we didn't want to do that because it could hurt bucket index listing performance. Now, based on Eric's PR, that's much better. So we can increase the number of bucket shards by default, which lets us have much better write parallelism than we previously did when you have multiple clients writing to one bucket, or just lots of stuff writing to one bucket concurrently, I guess.
Yeah,
all right.
And the PR title is misleading. Like the big thing is your change to the default, but this is just adding a command to make it easier to change the default after the fact.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's really good too, though. All right, excellent. And thank you, Casey, for doing that. I kind of have only been updating that PR periodically, and it is better to have you doing it because you're looking at it a lot more often.
Yep, excited to have this for Octopus.
Me too. RGW performance, I think, is going to look really, really good. So really exciting. Okay, so closed. What closed? Niha's PR to increase the default PG num in the PG autoscaler up to 32. That merged. That's really good. I think originally it was 8, then we bumped it to 16. Now we bumped it to 32. We're kind of trying to generally make the OSDs a little more receptive to having more PGs, potentially with smaller PG logs. That improves distribution of data when you don't have the balancer doing it, but then also kind of alleviates some other issues. So it just gives us a little bit more flexibility. I don't think it actually hurts anything by having more PGs with shorter logs. You're just distributing IOs across more PGs. Eventually it could hurt, right, if you have like a huge number of PGs, you have millions of PGs in your cluster. But at the level of scale that we typically see people deploying at, more PGs per OSD probably with shorter logs is probably not a big problem, and probably does help in some circumstances. Okay, another PR that actually merged from Radic regarding bufferless, not to use bufferless copy in. I believe I remember seeing that as a problem in some cases previously, possibly with the mem store. So that's good. That's just for encode for standard list though, but still really good. That actually might have been the situation I saw it in mem store, but I don't remember now. Let's see. Move delimiter-based bucket listing filtering logic to CLS. So that's the filtering stuff that Eric was working on in the CLS code in the OSD, so that we filter before sending it all to RGW. That merged. So that's very good. The updated Radic reviewed Kifu's transparent comparator PR. That's a big one that touches lots of stuff. So that will maybe you might have to update your PRs after that merges if you've got one out right now. NVMe device split the read IO if the IO size is large. Kifu reviewed that despite being on holiday right now, so that was very, very nice of him. We'll see if that can get in soon here. Adam's big objection triumphant PR. It looks like Patrick maybe saw some asserts in the MDS that he thinks could be related to that. I did see that, Adam, you updated that. It looks like maybe after that. Any news?
I'm going to take a look at it later.
Okay. Let's see.
I have an idea what the problem. I have an idea what the problem is, so I'm going to try a test fix later.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you had already updated it since I had seen it was updated, but I might have gotten my timing wrong when things happened. Okay, and then the last updated PR here is our other Adam has been working on his BlueStore RocksDB sharding PR. He updated that based on some feedback just to make it a little bit simpler, moving some logic into the key value database rather than doing it in BlueStore. It may be a little less flexible in the future, but it's a lot simpler. So that was kind of a desired trade-off. I think he's close to having that. So hopefully in the next week here, we'll see that go through another round of testing and possibly merge. That is it for now. A couple of exciting things still in the no movement category with the reduced memory footprint from Igor, that PR. I think that maybe just needs a final review. Else, I guess that's probably the other big one that's kind of exciting here that we're waiting on. A lot of other older stuff that hasn't seen movement in a while. So that's it for PRs. I do not have. Oh, actually, are there any other ones I missed from anybody that's interesting going on right now?
I've joined a bit. I'm a bit late. Has the resurrection of LastP and buffer list size optimization have been mentioned? Sorry.
I went over them briefly, Radek, but go right ahead. They're very interesting. So
Okay, it's just a resurrection of the old effort to optimize size of buffer list from the beginning of 2019. Two PRs contribute to the squeeze. One is about LastP. It's a pretty old one, but reworked to not introduce any new mechanism, just to move to iterators instead. Second one, this gives savings from 72 bytes on x86 to 40, but there is also another one that rearrange the things inside buffer list. It allows to squeeze another 8 bytes and reduce the size to 32, which is half of cache line. Most x86 might be worth something. Yesterday, I was testing. I was testing the stuff in Crimson on my local machine. Well, it gives maybe 2 or 3% as well.
Okay. Did you see any significant reduction in memory usage with the memory savings?
Well, I haven't checked for that. Just the cycles per op and total IOPS in case of. I was going with Crimson actually.
Okay. Well, good work, Radek. I always felt that, like, when we were working on that, I don't remember if it was last summer or the summer before. It was unfortunate that we couldn't make more progress on it.
Yeah, I was struggling about the buffer list for more than a year, and finally, after finishing the exclusive lock for Crimson, I've got some time for buffer list. Still, there is one big, maybe it's not a performance related, but there is one stick issue with buffer list. It's the crosstalk. We had it for years. Basically, if you make a new instance of buffer list by copy constructing from, let's say, const on another const qualified instance of buffer list, and you operate on the buffers inside, well, the modifications will be visible in both of them, including the const qualified one. That's a bit painful, but to fix this behavior, we would need to make bigger changes.
Radek, do you remember when we were looking at the fast vector implementation and trying to use that in buffer list, but it was not actually any faster because we still had
not at all. Yeah,
the pointers? Have you looked at that again at all?
No, we made completely different approach. Instead of trying to embed as much things we can in buffer list instance itself, we decided to minimize the size of instance and try to embed the buffer pointer in a special space designated in buffer row. We called it hyper combining. It's disabled for now because there was some nasty unidentified crashes, but well, today they still are. There was an issue with pointer with PTR release, even without the hyper combining, so it might be not related. Anyway,
Okay.
it seems that we can squeeze more from minimizing, from improving the cache density, actually.
Okay. Well, cool.
The smaller
Good job.
the smaller buffer list buffer list instance is, the more buffer list you can have on the same on the same side, on the same amount of cache. That's one thing, but there is also extra bonus. During moves, you need to copy less memory. And that's quite a frequent thing in Crimson, because, well, buffer list in Crimson, buffer list tends to be embedded inside of sister future, and sister future are moved over and over. So the performance of move constructing of buffer list is pretty important. I made a small patch that allows the constructor that allows compiler to inline the move constructor of buffer list.
So every time that sorry, when you were saying, what were you saying about how features work again with buffer list?
Okay. Future is basically a promise value. Inside, the value can be an integer, but in many cases in Crimson, it's a buffer list. And when you operate with future returning things and future taking and buffer list taking things, usually you have a lot of moves.
Yeah. Okay. And previously we were doing copy in for that, right?
No, we haven't actually, because
oh, we were. Okay.
In Crimson we tend to fragment the entire path into smaller into much smaller pieces. We have a pretty long chain of small continuations, and all of them communicate by handling futures.
Okay. All right. Well, not to end the conversation, but we should probably move on, I suppose. Were there any other PRs this week that that people wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about? All right. Well, then, the only thing that I think we're going to, what was it in the stand-up earlier that we were going to bring over to the to this meeting, Radek?
Sorry?
In stand-up, there was something we were going to continue discussing.
Yes. Yes, the upgrades in Insertalab.
Yes, the Ceph arg parse issue.
Exactly. That's a pain. Well,
go ahead.
I'm not specific about. Well, I don't have any extra requirements on a particular version of OS. All of them work for me nicely. I will just want to stick to the same version as you, to not diversify, to not differentiate unnecessarily the environments, even for the sake of testing repeatability.
Sure. I think that all of those machines will probably be upgraded to CentOS 8 shortly. So don't worry too much if you need to change it. Change it so that you can run your tests. But then
I see.
as soon as we can, let's get everything moved over to CentOS 8.
But
The only thing I worry about. Go ahead.
Will the upgrade happen just for me, without my intervention, or should I ping some folks or maybe even do it on my own? What's the policy here?
What I would like to do is, once we are finished getting all of the big number tests done on Officinalis, then I'd like to migrate the people that are using Inserta over to those nodes, and then you could use those machines instead, unless you need hard drive tests, because they're faster and they have more memory and they'd be nicer to test on. And then the Inserta nodes, I'd like to, once people are off of them, then upgrade those, basically just blow them completely away, upgrade them, and then add them into the Jenkins pool for doing CI tests.
Okay.
And then your work, along with Casey's work, I want to take that and also start doing CI for master Ceph as well as for C-Star or Crimson.
Okay, I see. There is nice addition by the way, completely by the. Okay, maybe not so completely, but a bit by the way. There is a pull request for CBT bringing support for the cycles per op metric, which can be useful also for master for classical OSD. It has been made by Avnum. I bet you might want to take a look after your holiday.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds like an excellent addition.
Yep, I bet it's. Also, Avnum is working on extending the entire performance comparison metric comparisons over a broader set of benchmarks, because at the moment we only have this feature for Rados bench. For the Rados bench,
okay.
CBT's integration. So we really want to move. We really want to make it available also for the FIO integration of CBT. Then it could be really useful, I believe.
We should do FIO and then the HS bench one as well, because that's pretty useful for testing RGW. We could try to do cost bench, but the cost bench one, the wrapper for cost bench is kind of nasty. So it's, to me, it's less important than the HS bench one, which is pretty easy to modify. I
see. I think, well, at the moment, Avnum is preparing for his for exams at his university. But when he's back, likely you might want also to take a look on the interface we designed for other benchmarks as well. Idea is to generalize the performance comparison. At the moment, CBT runs the Rados bench, and only for Rados bench it's able to run perf underneath. And also for Rados bench, CBT is able to compare values of the acquired metric between two runs.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, we are working to extend this feature to bring the same features to more benchmark integrations. Sure.
That would be really good if we could make it generic enough that you can just have it as part of the underlying benchmark class.
Yeah. That would be really cool.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. I will try to take a look at that. Probably not until I get back, but definitely. Also, if it works well, feel free to try merging it, and then if it breaks stuff, I guess we'll know what happened, right?
Okay.
All right. Well, One other thing I want to bring up, Igor, you had mentioned in stand up today, just a little bit of what you were looking at with the 64K min-alloc size testing. Could you just briefly go over that?
If you remember, we discussed potential ways to still have 4K, 64K. To have both good speed and effective space allocations. And the idea was to try a well allocator and maybe different approach for bitmap allocator to allocate contiguous blocks in some cases. But the more I think about the issue, the more it looks like this is generally unresolvable issue. So looks like larger allocation sizes might improve writes. They might improve reads, but they negatively impact writes. And hence, when we switch from 4K to 64K or back, forth and back, we benefit in one scenario and lose in another.
Yeah.
So there is no ideal solution in this case. What I'm trying to say. And I'll try to run through benchmark numbers we've got already and make sure again that this additional fragmentation which we introduced by using 4K, it impacts reads negatively and it improves writes, but so I'd like to confirm this theory and then come back with some report, but again, it looks like unresolvable, generally unresolvable issue. So one should select which scenario is more important for him.
I know last week we were talking about doing a 4K allocation size, but then having like a flag that you could request larger contiguous allocations. Is there any benefit to doing that at this point, do you think? Or is that kind of no different than just doing larger min-alloc size?
Well, again, these tricks in having large allocations sizes, they still suffer from in some scenario. So,
okay.
So if we have the full, maybe full, but comprehensive enough list of benchmarks, and then we try to tune this parameter, some will go down, some will go up, and there is no scenario which so there is no possibility to get all of them better than before. So, but just a theory so far. I'd like to work on that a bit more and check with my existing existing reports if that makes sense.
I guess last week we were talking about trying to narrow in on like the root cause, and I guess your theory so far is fragmentation, which makes sense intuitively. But I guess maybe once we narrow down the cause of the slowdown more precisely, maybe we can think about if there is some way that we can address it, either the fluid source allocation strategy, the allocator itself, or maybe using the hints from the client better or something like that. I guess I don't want to say it's unresolvable until we are concerned with the root cause, and maybe we can analyze it in more depth at that point.
Sure. All right. Well, I think that was it for stuff I had. Anyone have any other topics they want to bring up? Or Igor, did you have other things?
Just one more topic. Well, actually, it's a bit unsorted, but I've seen multiple complaints about performance regression between Luminous and Nautilus, including myself under some FIO scenarios.
What scenarios, Igor?
Well, as I said, it's pretty unsorted. In those spreadsheet for 64K versus 4K log sizes, it has some columns about some columns for Luminous, and one can see performance difference there. I've heard from 2 or 3 other people suffering something similar, but in rather different scenarios, in full production clusters, so not in standalone FIO. But well, so as I said, it's pretty unsorted so far. So if someone has similar concerns, so you'll be able to run your regression tests, benchmarks, if any, one day and share results, it would be great.
Igor, do you know if the reports from Luminous, are they running the stupid allocator versus bitmap allocator?
Well, that's for my benchmarks. Well, as for as for my benchmarks, I have the latest Luminous which run on bitmap allocator. For other, I think they are pretty the same, so they are not legacy Luminous or latest Luminous releases.
Another
probably
possibility.
the same allocator.
Another possibility too, Igor, is that it could be the OSD memory target and memory auto tuning. If they're running a test where previously they were allocating almost all of the cache for onode cache, and then with the memory auto tuning, if it's trying to balance between RocksDB and onode cache, but because it's double caching onodes in both, you may have less memory than is available, less memory than you previously did dedicated to onodes, and sometimes that might very well could be slower. So maybe one thing, yeah, if you have the ability to do the testing, see if increasing the memory target helps, and if that does, then it's probably that other issue. I've got a PR that basically fixes it, but we are waiting until the Adams RocksDB sharding work finishes before we merge it. But that very well could be it.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
All right, anything else, guys?
What was it you mentioned about Ceph argparse?
on all of the Inserta nodes, running CentOS 7 with, I think it's Python 3.6, some version of 3.6, we're seeing Ceph argparse. It's basically immediately returning when you're trying to, I think it's like close a thread, and then it's like messing up. There's a PR that I've got that describes it better.
All right.
Let me find. Are you seeing something like that, Adam?
No, I was just curious.
Okay.
Mark,
Yes.
how do you start? How do you start the cluster? Are you do you use CBT for it or just by vstart?
CBT.
Okay, it makes okay. Now I see. I tried applying the patch, and after that, vstart.sh actually goes into hang loop. It tries to start some things over and over and over.
Oh, really? That's strange. Why would that
Okay,
break it?
I will try to collect the standard output and put in the out from vstart stage and put it in. I will put it into the PR.
Okay. I still wonder in this if it's not hitting other distributions, what exactly is going on? Maybe it's just like a bug in like CentOS's version of Python or something. I don't know.
Well, the issue looks crazy.
It doesn't happen on our CentOS 8 boxes, so yeah. Oh, Radek, I just wanted to let you know. Sorry, this is unrelated to this conversation, but David just mentioned that the Inserta nodes are ready to be moved across racks. So
I saw.
this is.
I'm just going with SSH and to get an insert and collect the stuff. Hopefully, I will make that before David will turn the node off.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else, guys. So I will be out on PTO for the next 2 weeks. I think Josh is going to take over next week, and then he's also out. So we may or may not have a meeting the following week. There's a message here from Mark. I don't know if I'm saying your last name right, Lehrer. Let's see. I would like to help improve SSD threading. Yes, thank you. I'm sure it was awful. Okay, so SSD threading. What precisely are you thinking about in terms of what you're trying to improve? Let's see. So when benchmarking IOStat average queue size, that's very similar to a field that's collected by collectl in CBT that also looks at the average queue sizes. We have looked at that along with the service times on the underlying devices. Sometimes that actually does show up, especially when you have a device that's like really slow and not performing right. But we do look at that sometimes. Okay, I can't get my SSD to do more than a few things at a time based on the IOStat queue size. Okay. What kind of SSD are you using out of curiosity? SN200. So I am not familiar with that device. One thing that we have definitely noticed in the past is that if the particular drive does not have power loss protection, it may do OD sync writes slowly, and that kind of has manifested sometimes in behavior similar to what you're seeing. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case here, but that would be something to look at. Yeah, sure. Definitely. I won't be around myself next week, but a couple other people here that might be able to also take a look and provide some ideas. And definitely, if you're interested in working on stuff, there's plenty of things to look at.
Yeah, let's talk next week. Maybe more. And once your mic works, it'll be much easier to have a discussion too.
Josh, one thing I was thinking that might be interesting here too with his results would be a block trace to see how long like syncs are taking.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I guess, like you said, the individual device may play a significant role, so maybe more benchmarks against that device with the OD sync and whatnot. It's always interesting to check, verify that behaving in a manner that will work well for Ceph.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if the queue is backing up on the device and he's seeing, especially if he's seeing like high service times or something, like average service times, that it's probably like syncing the disk or syncing is slow or something.
Yeah, it could be. I guess we'll find out more next week.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. All right. Well, good luck, guys. I will see everyone again in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess. So have a good one, and talk to you again then. See ya.
Thanks, Mark. See ya.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks. Have a nice holiday. See you guys.